people that aren't here yet.
There's
How was?
nobody,
What did you say?
there's nobody here yet.
Yeah, there's no one. How was church this morning? How was your
It
Easter
was
service?
it was really good. The music wasn't music was really good. In praise band, so I gotta say I'm kind of biased, but I thought it was
Yeah.
good. Or this morning, I don't know if I should talk about this on the stream. This probably should be like more private.
I don't think it
Yeah.
matters the name of the
Our
worship band. I used to be in a worship band too. Just
yeah,
don't say the name of the place.
our youth pastor and not youth pastor, our music pastor or worship pastor. Yes,
Uh-huh.
worship pastor. And his wife kind of bicker about just like about what's going on in the songs.
Yeah.
And he messed up something in the settings and there was a verse missing. Hello
Oh,
person in
God.
the stream. And it was we just kind of make jokes about how they kind of bicker about silly stuff.
I remember when I was in the worship band a few years ago, there was this one song that, like, it was a new song that I was supposed to lead, and I don't know if I told you this, but, like, I was singing it, and then I started singing it to the tune of, like, the Hobbit theme song.
Really?
Do-do-do-do-do-do. It was so embarrassing because it was so close to the Hobbit theme. Oh, there's
Oh
Baxter.
gosh. Hello.
Words, the other guy that's on the. I know. That was embarrassing.
Funny.
Anyway, I guess a few
Yeah.
people that are popping in and out of the live chat.
Hold on.
Yeah. Happy Easter, guys. Thank you
Happy
for dropping in.
parents know that we're live.
Yeah. I kind of forget too. Anyways, guys, obviously I'm Shenanigan Skywalker, and this is my Padawan Sophia, and we thought we'd do an Easter Bible study, and it was originally going to be kind of casual, like with no notes or anything, just straight up reading the. Blizzard's Holocron, welcome, welcome. Let me flip to my notes. Also, if anyone wants to read along with us, I was gonna put it on my iPad, but there's just a bad glare, so you can't read that. So if you want to read along with us, it's Luke chapter 24. Otherwise, you could just listen to us read it. It's cool too. Pukum said, "Why are you showing our terrible looking playhouse?" Well, it's either that or the pile of like garbage we got to burn in the yard. Would you rather me show that? Probably not. I got that playhouse when I was in kindergarten. I graduated kindergarten and my parents got me a playhouse. So that's how old it is. Okay.
I moved.
Sophia, do you want to? I know you introduced yourself in the last live stream you were in, but
Yeah.
do you want to like introduce yourself again? Kind of say what you're all about, your interests and stuff.
I'm Shen Padawan. I don't I don't know what to say.
Who's your favorite Star Wars character and why? We'll start out with that.
My favorite Star Wars character is Ahsoka, as you can see. The character development she goes through, just the trials, and also she's just really cool.
I agree. That's my second favorite. I already knew that though.
Yeah.
To
Rex.
All right, people. Oh yeah, of course. Rex is always my goat. I'm gonna. If the background gets too boring, guys, I can always make it face my dog because he's adorable. Baxter, everyone. He's such a potato. He has the physique of a potato and the personality. But yeah. Anyways, we're gonna start just reading Luke chapter 24. It's the story of the resurrection, obviously. And I wanted to give some notes on it that I guess like if you grew up in church, this story sounds basic to you because you've heard it so many times. So I wanted to give like a different angle on it.
Yeah.
So, do you want
Do
to
you
start? What did you say?
I was gonna ask you the same thing.
Oh,
Um,
I can read 1 through 8, and then you can pick up and do 9 through 12 if you want.
sure.
It's split up into 2 paragraphs. Okay, and this one's called Jesus Has Risen. And also, guys, if you're not familiar with the crucifixion and that story, I put a video up on my community tab a couple days ago about like a medical perspective of the crucifixion. So I'd really recommend you go watch that, just for some more context. Anyway, this is Luke chapter 24, and I'm starting with verse 1. It's called Jesus Has Risen. On the first day of the week, which would be a Sunday, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still with you in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." Then they remembered his words.
They came back from the tomb. They told all these things to the 11 and to all the others: Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them were the ones who told the apostles. But the apostles did not believe the women. Their words didn't make any sense to them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. He bent over and saw the strips of linen lying by themselves. Then he went away, wondering what had happened.
Good. So a couple notes. This was obviously like a couple days after Jesus was crucified, and it was custom at that time to take spices and wrap the body and like put spices with the linen to, you know, kind of preserve the body. So that's what they're doing in verse 1. And like Sophia said, the women would be like Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of Jesus, and I think it's Joanna. Forgot about her.
How to pronounce that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think you got it right. And this is a segue number 1 of many. I helped out with VBS, like the theater portion of Vacation Bible School, a few years ago, and my job was to be one of the Marys at the tomb. So all I had to do was just go up to the tomb, and it was empty, and just go, "Jesus is risen," and like run through like the aisles of kids, and they would get all excited.
Yeah,
So that's just what it reminded me of.
that's fun.
But except the older kids, they weren't playing along. Like, come on, I'm acting for you, and you look bored to tears.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like the first through third graders, or even some of the fourth graders, are like, "Oh, this is so fun," and then the fifth and sixth graders are like, "This is so
Too
boring."
cool for
I
this. Uh-huh.
Mom forced me to.
It was fun though, but it was like
Yeah,
the older the kids got, I was like, come on, y'all. Like, I'm doing this for your benefit. Like, just don't make me feel dumb. Um, anyway, hey, Ethan, happy Easter. I'm gonna be here for an hour because I'm getting to go to my evening services at my church in an hour, but I'm here for now. Yeah, I'm gonna leave in about an hour or two to go see the sunset at the dam. Because I just love sitting on the dam on the rocks and watching the sun go down. So this will be a kind of short stream. Anyway, um, was there anything else you wanted to like comment on in the passage, Sophia?
and verse 5, the women were terrified, and they bowed down to their face at the ground. Every single time there is a angel mentioned in the Bible, it's always they were terrified.
I can imagine. Like, what passage this morning is that it's interesting that like the angel was just sitting on the top of the
Mhm.
stone that was rolled away. He was just chilling there. Like there's no reason for him to be there really. He's just vibing on the top of the tomb. Like, I just think that's kind of funny. Um, After like the Roman soldiers fainted. Anyway,
Yeah, like
um,
they're always
what
do
were you
not. Everyone's afraid.
I don't blame them. I'd fall down on terror too. Little Bacterium said, I was scrolling in the YouTube Shorts and I saw this. Can someone tell me what's the subject? I didn't know this shows up in YouTube Shorts for one. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So Little Bacterium, it's Easter obviously, and we are reading Luke chapter 24 and going over the Easter story of the resurrection. But I know some people kind of see that story as like basic because they grew up in church. So I'm trying to give an angle to it about why the resurrection makes sense. So we're about to hop into that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, let's see. What else was I going to mention? Oh, yeah. In verse 9, when it says, when they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. Um, for any of y'all that are not like super familiar with the story of the resurrection, there were originally 12 disciples, and Judas betrayed Jesus, and then was like basically, what did you say?
He was so guilty that he tried to return the silver, and then when they, I don't think when they, but he was so guilty that himself. So that's why there were only 11 here.
Yeah. So he hanged himself, and then I do wonder, like, I know he felt guilty, but I think we talked about this last time. There's a difference between just feeling bad and like actually repenting and wishing you hadn't done it.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he just felt eaten up with guilt or if he truly felt sorry that he
Mm. Yeah.
with us. Just Google Luke chapter 24. We're just reading the first part of the chapter. So I did some research about the validity of the resurrection, basically why it makes sense logically, which sounds like counterintuitive because you're like, why? It's literally the resurrection of the dead. Like, that doesn't make any sense
Mm.
from a logical standpoint. But I'm going to offer some points that might help. And Sophia, feel free to interrupt me because I've got so many notes that if I'm talking too long, like, just interrupt me with your commentary. Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
So about 2 months ago, I did a live stream about how to witness to people effectively and just present the gospel in a way that makes sense to them. And I went through historical evidence for Jesus, like Jesus' existence in general. So I'd highly recommend going and looking back at that live stream from about a month ago. And I went over a couple historians named Flavius Josephus, I think, and Tacitus,
Yes.
along with the eyewitness testimonies in the Bible. So I'd recommend going and listening to that again. Just because that gives like actual evidence that Jesus existed, which most scholars, there's not really much disagreement about Jesus' existence. They just
About
disagree over whether he was God.
about everybody believes that Jesus existed at one point in history,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, there's not like debate over that so much.
yeah, there's several different theories on like about the resurrection and how, and there's like the people who are like, oh yeah, he wasn't. There's some people who are saying that he wasn't actually dead. Um, some people were like, think that I'm trying to remember what I, I I know that one of them was that he wasn't actually dead, and that one is like how,
Interesting.
yeah, it's like very interesting because it was impossible to survive the cross. They
Yeah.
made you were dead, and after he died, they went and made sure he was dead by stabbing him in the side, and I'm like, how did he act?
Yeah.
Let him? How would they let him survive something like that?
And usually it took a couple days for someone to die when they're crucified, but his took like 6 hours.
Mhm.
And it was
They were,
customary for them to like break the legs of the person who's crucified to make them die quicker.
yeah, after a while,
Um,
they were taking too long. They would go and
yeah,
yeah, so they could.
which they didn't do that. They didn't do that to Jesus, but
Yeah.
That's to make
did.
it where they can't like support like their breathing like by pushing up on the nails, you know, and then they could just they'd eventually suffocate.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. So let's see. I had my notes notes out of order. So we're going to start with the evidence for why the resurrection makes sense from a logical standpoint. So, number one is embarrassment of the disciples. And this applies to all four gospels. And what am I talking about embarrassment? Basically, the four gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are full of embarrassing things about the disciples. And just like, for instance, when Jesus rebukes Peter and says, "Get behind me, Satan."
Yeah,
Um,
that one.
or like, I'm sure you can think of some more too, like Peter sinking um in the sea, like because of his lack of faith,
Yeah.
and Jesus having to rescue him.
The denial.
Yeah, Peter denying Jesus 3 times. Like this is stuff that if I was, let's just hypothetically, if Shenanigans Skywalker was going to write a story with Sophia and um make ourselves the center of the story, we're gonna fabricate this legend. I would not be putting embarrassing stuff about myself in it. I don't know about you, but I'd be like
Yeah.
making myself look really good.
I'd be like,
Um,
"Oh, Shin was so faithful. She always did the right thing. She always witnessed." And it
yeah, exactly. She's such a strong Christian. She never did anything wrong. Um, yeah, that's like one reason why I think it kind of adds to the validity
mm,
um of the gospels is the fact that like if Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, if they're writing this down, they would not be like talking about Peter, their leader, in like a belittling way. And especially
yeah,
Peter wouldn't let them. He'd be like, "What are you talking about? I'm not like you're not writing that down."
yeah, for
Um, yeah. So basically, when it comes to the resurrection in particular, though, if the disciples had actually fabricated the story, they would not have made the women be the first people to discover the empty tomb, and then end up doubting their testimony. You know, and the reason why is because in ancient Israel, women obviously were not seen as equal to men in a lot of respects. And um, Josephus, the guy I mentioned earlier, who is a historian, he said this about Jewish law: let not the testimony of women be admitted on account of the levity and boldness of their sex. So basically, if a woman said that something happened, people are going to automatically doubt just because it's a
yeah.
woman. They're going to be like, "What are you talking about?" You know.
I know.
Um, so if the disciples, the women be the first people to discover the empty tomb, because that would just like immediately turn people away and be like, "That's crazy. We're not listening to women." It would have been them discovering the tomb first. So
Absolutely.
it's just you know,
Especially
uh,
those. It's just at the time nobody really cared about women.
yeah, basically, women were, and I guess like in some ways they were respected, but like in terms of like people didn't believe them as like credible witness.
Yeah.
So the fact that like God chose the women to be the first ones at the tomb is interesting because people weren't going to believe women, and like women were seen as like less than men.
They
Um
at that point in time they were seen just above slaves. So it was
basically.
really bad.
Um so I think that lends to the credibility of the gospels. And oh, there's a lizard.
Oh, cute.
Hello,
Where?
lizard.
Where is he?
It's right here. Hold on. I'll show you. Here.
Hello.
Uh yep.
That's fun.
Um yeah. Oh, this is a bathtub for like washing Baxter. It's just turtle
Yeah,
shaped.
that's fun.
Anyway. Yeah, so that was my first evidence for why it makes sense, why the gospel story makes sense. It's just the fact that like if you were gonna create a story and just fabricate it, you would not have made yourself look bad. You would not have gotten Jesus to call you Satan. You wouldn't have made your leader look terrible and like oh yeah, they all hid in fear when Jesus was being crucified because they didn't want to be crucified as well. Like they just hid in like a basement basically so they wouldn't be associated with Jesus. So that's really embarrassing details you would not have included in the story
Mm.
otherwise. Um
What's
let's
another
see.
we got? Um,
What did you say?
what's another point?
I've got number 2, the motives of the disciples. So basically, in church this morning, we were talking about like who could have stolen the body. Like if the resurrection did not happen, then let's say someone stole the body of Jesus and pretended like the resurrection happened. So um the Romans certainly wouldn't have stolen Jesus' body. That would make no sense because they were the very ones who mocked and beat Jesus and
Yeah.
put the crown of thorns on his head and made fun of him mockingly about being the king of the Jews.
And then
So
locked
why in the world would they?
and then
What'd you
locked
say?
and then locked him in the tomb.
Yeah, like that doesn't make any. It's self-defeating. Um, the religious leaders, like the Pharisees, they definitely would not have like faked the resurrection because they were the very ones that throughout Jesus' entire ministry they wanted him put to death. They saw him as a threat to their own agenda and their own
Yeah.
authority. Um, so why in the world would they like take Jesus from the tomb and then basically validate his story, validate his whole thing about being the son of God.
Exactly.
Um,
Because they were all like, they were the ones who got him arrested in the first place. They were the ones who wanted him dead. Because they're like, he's undermining our authority, and
yeah, and
so it's like, dang.
um, and they were the very ones like throughout Jesus' entire ministry, they were always like, I just envision them kind of stalking him like while he's
Yeah,
performing miracles, and they're
they
just waiting on
basically
him to
were.
like screw up.
They pretty were.
Yeah, I always envision the Pharisees as like, that guy from Mulan, the one that holds the clipboard and follows.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I imagine
Oh yeah.
whenever I read about the Pharisees.
He would be an amazing Pharisee.
He would. He just
Hmm. They were so their leader was being executed.
yeah, they back to just take the body.
Hmm.
Um, secondly, it wouldn't make sense that like in order to take the body to like take out all the guards and perform
Yeah.
some kind of ninja jujitsu on them and, and take them all out and steal the body, roll the stone away. How in the world? How are you gonna do that? Like, just the disciples doing that. 11 of them. Hey Jedi Master Annie, welcome. That doesn't make any sense either. And also, uh, they had no motive. Had no like they would have no motive to steal the body because like historically speaking, usually when people commit a crime, it's either for sex, money, or power. And if they stole the body of Jesus, like literally they get nothing out of it.
Seriously.
Like they don't get sex, money, or power out of it. Um and most of them were God-fearing Jews. Some of them like an incarnate God, like a God in human form, was absurd to Jews back in the day. And that would put a huge target on their backs, like to just take
Like,
Jesus' body. Like that's putting them in a more danger.
yeah, because they didn't. There was no Trinity to them. It was just God.
Hmm.
And then of course they would have the spirit of the Lord every now and then, but they didn't know about the Trinity.
Yeah.
Or
So the idea, and Orthodox Jews nowadays too, like think that the like worshiping Jesus is ridiculous. Basically, this isn't all Jews, but Orthodox Jews um don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and they kind of like laugh at the idea.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so they had the disciples had nothing to gain by being Jesus' followers for one, but also stealing the body wouldn't have made any sense for those reasons.
And if they were caught stealing the body, they would have either been punished severely or even executed for that kind of.
Probably executed.
Probably executed because, I mean, he was under Roman guard. Jesus's body was under Roman guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they probably would have been crucified, all of them.
Maybe.
Another reason why it doesn't make any sense for the disciples to steal the body and fabricate the story of the resurrection, it's basically like saying, hey guys, let's make up this crazy story that'll get us all tortured and executed. That's literally all that's going to happen to us. Nothing great is going to happen to us. We don't get money, power. We get tortured, beheaded, crucified, executed, Yep. Like, what's in it for them? There's no motive to stealing the body.
It was like the worst punishment.
Yeah.
I guess they would have been stealing Roman property.
Basically, there's no way they would just be imprisoned. They would definitely be put to death, I think. Because, like, think about it. The guy next to Jesus on the cross was a thief.
Mm-hmm.
And if he got crucified for being a thief, imagine what they would have done to the disciples if they had stolen the body of Jesus. Like, that's
real. That
crazy.
Been insane.
The third point I was going to bring up is the martyrdom of the apostles. So this kind of ties into how it doesn't make sense for the apostles or the disciples to make up the story of Jesus and the story of the resurrection. All 12 disciples, except for Judas, who committed suicide, and John, who survived old age, all of them were put to death for their faith. I'm completely sure about Matthias. He's the guy that took Judas's place. I don't know if he was martyred, but 10 out of 12 disciples were killed for their faith. And Peter was crucified upside down, supposedly because he didn't see himself worthy to die the same way Jesus did. So he was like, I don't want to be crucified right side up. I don't think I'm worthy enough to die in that way.
Yeah, it was like what, an X? It was a upside down on an X-shaped cross.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know how that would even work. Like,
yeah, like,
I don't know. That's terrible.
And you, like, I guess if your arms straight up, I don't know.
I guess, like, I'm just imagining what that even look like. The blood would be rushing to your head so bad. Like, can you imagine on top of just being in excruciating pain, like the blood rushing to your head?
That's so horrible.
Yeah, that's horrifying. And so why does any of this matter? Like, I mean, there are plenty of martyrs for Islam or other religions throughout history. Like, why does the death of 10 out of the 12 apostles or disciples mean anything? Basically, if the story was fabricated and they had made it all up and the disciples stole the body, they would be the biggest fools in history to die for what they knew was a lie. Because, like, people, if you have Muslims today who die for their faith, they genuinely believe what they're dying for. But the disciples, if they died for something that they knew was a lie and they made up, that would be so incredibly stupid and unrealistic. Like, you would have told the truth by then. Like,
no one died. Don't believe in.
Yeah, like, somebody might die for what they believe in, but no one's going to die for something that they know is just made up. Like, they made it up themselves. That doesn't make any sense. You're not going to be willing to die for that.
Unless you're stupid.
Unless you're stupid, yeah. Unless you're just stupid. And yeah, basically, like, so they were convinced it was true, because who would voluntarily give up their lives for something that they know is a lie and just a made up story?
Yeah.
So that's the third point I had. I had one more point, and if you had anything to add to that, Sophia, feel free to interrupt me.
Not really. You're covering basically all the bases.
I was doing some heavy research on this. Fourth thing I was going to bring up is the conversion of Paul. So I've talked about Paul a ton in my live streams. Paul was he used to be a Jewish religious leader back in the days of the early church, right after Jesus' death and resurrection. and his name was originally Saul, and he persecuted the early church of Christians, because a lot of Christians were being put to death for their beliefs because it was seen as like heresy, basically, to believe in Jesus, and he was kind of spearheading some of that with the persecution of Christians.
And the
And-
first, yeah, the first mention of Paul we have in the Bible is the execution of
Stephen?
Stephen. Thank you. I was blanking on his name.
That's right.
My friend Clayton actually played Stephen in a play, and so I'm like, wait, what was
really?
what was Clayton's name in the play? Yeah, we did. Our church did a play Stephen for a youth event, and it's kind of like a modernized version of that of the of Paul's conversion story.
That's interesting. I forgot that he was in Stephen, like the story of Stephen's like being martyred,
Yeah,
getting stoned to death.
He was standing there watching them beat him up, stone him.
Yeah, I do wonder, like, was he the one that kind of caught Stephen to begin with and persecuted him, or is he just kind of standing there watching?
He was holding the cloaks of the people who were throwing the stones.
Okay. Yes, he was definitely involved in some regard, letting it happen.
Yeah.
So that's like an amazing conversion story. He went from persecuting Jews. This is a dumb analogy. It reminds me of, what's the guy's name? Callus from Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah!
He started out an Imperial. Literally, he started out as an Imperial persecuting the rebels, and then turned out to be a rebel by the end, and like became one of the leaders of the rebellion. I thought that was,
that was cool.
Anyway, let's see. Okay, anyway, about Paul. So he went from Saul, and then he was renamed Paul when he became a Christian. And he became a believer. What'd you say?
Oh, fun fact. Saul was his Jewish name. Paul was his Roman name. So his Jewish friends always called him Saul, and his Roman friends always called him Paul. But in, I think, what was it? Is it John? It's either in Mark or John, where he's referred to as Paul strictly because they don't want to confuse readers, I guess. Yeah.
And there was one point where he was supposed to be like scourged, like Jesus was, like beaten with a cat of nine tails. And he showed his like Roman status. He showed like his Roman identification or something, and proved that he was a Roman citizen, and then they didn't beat him
because they legally couldn't. They would get in huge trouble if they beat a Roman citizen. With that kind of if they punished him with that.
Yeah, what chapter was that? I don't remember. Let's look it up. So anyway, he became a believer and gave up his status basically as like a religious leader, because no one's gonna, he's basically a heretic now.
Yep.
He was also persecuted, imprisoned, and I think he was executed too, wasn't he? Was he beheaded?
Yep. He was. I'm not sure how he was executed, but he was executed after he appealed to Caesar. He was found guilty of something or other. I don't remember exactly what he was charged with.
Around in front of the Sanhedrin, like in Acts 22 through 26. Same thing with Peter and was it Peter and John? I think they were imprisoned, and then they were told like don't like stop talking about Jesus, and they were like, we're good. We're gonna keep doing it. Suck it up. Like they were being threatened with imprisonment and death, and they were still like, no, I'm still gonna talk about Jesus, And if they had made it all up, they would have given up by then.
Absolutely. Because if it meant nothing, why would they go and give up their lives? Like,
absolutely. And I was going to read 2 Corinthians 11:23 through 33. If you want to pull it up too, we can like take turns. But this is basically about Paul's trials, everything he went through, and how he counts it as joy for Christ's sake. Like he went through all of this terrible stuff in his life.
what do you say?
Because he's persecuted. It was 2 Corinthians 11, starting in verse 23. Yeah, basically he went through so much stuff we're about to read, and for Christ's sake, because like he was persecuted and yet he still didn't like forsake Jesus.
I know.
It's interesting. Let me pull up 2 Corinthians it's chapter 11 verse 23. Okay, I see it.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
Else dares to boast about. I'm speaking as a fool. Dare to boast about. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they Abraham's descendants? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I'm out of my mind to talk like this. I am more. I've worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1, which would be being scourged like Jesus was before he died. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. I've labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I've been cold and naked. You can pick up in verse 28.
Besides everything else, every day I am concerned about all the churches. It's a very heavy load. If anyone is weak, I feel weak. If anyone is led into sin, I burn on the inside. If I have to brag, I will brag about the things that show how weak I am. I am not lying. The God and Father of the Lord Jesus knows this. May God be praised forever. In Damascus, the governor who served under King Aretas,
Like that.
their city guarded. He wanted to arrest me, but I was lowered in a basket from a window in the wall, so I slipped through the governor's hands.
Nice. Yeah, so imagine being Paul, like if all of this was just for nothing and he was just making all of it up, he would not have allowed himself to be scourged,
Mhm.
like literally beaten severely like Jesus was. And this was like, it wasn't just a whip. This whip had like pieces of glass or stone or bone in it to make it like excruciating when they'd over the back to where it's just like peeling off your flesh. So he allowed himself to go through so much.
Yeah. Ethan, it's 2 Corinthians 11
11.
21 through 21 through 33.
Yeah, there you go. So to recap, guys, if you pop into the chat later, we read Luke chapter 24. And then we talked about, like, we just went through the resurrection story, and then I shared evidence of why the resurrection makes sense from a logical point of view, because if the resurrection happened, then it's the most important events in all of history because it proves that Jesus is God and that's the only way to heaven. If it did not happen, then Christians are idiots and we're sharing the gospel for nothing. But I think there's ample evidence to suggest that the gospels are in fact true. So the evidence I went through was in terms of the resurrection, the embarrassment of the disciples throughout the gospels and how it wouldn't make sense that they fabricated the story because they made themselves look really bad. Second was the disciples had no motive to steal the body, and neither did anyone else, like the Romans, the religious leaders. It just doesn't make any sense. And then all of the disciples except John and Judas were put to death for their faith. So if they had fabricated the story and stolen the body, they would not have gone to the extent of being put to death, letting themselves be put to death for what they knew was a lie. So it doesn't make sense that they would make up the resurrection. And then the last point was the conversion of Paul and his testimony and how he allowed himself to be imprisoned and scourged and shipwrecked and stoned and then eventually executed for something that's true. Like, he wouldn't have made all that up. So that was just 4 points we went over if you missed it. Yeah. Was there any other points that I missed, Sophia?
Did you mention Paul's conversion?
Yeah, that was the last point.
Gotcha. I grabbed a thing that I'm working on for a friend. It's a little axolotl.
Oh, that's so cute. Bye, Annie. Thank you for dropping by.
If Chan hears this, I'm practicing witchcraft.
Yeah. If y'all don't know, Master Chanikin Skywalker, he's another Christian YouTuber, and he thinks it's funny that Sophia knows how to like crochet and all this stuff, and he thinks it's just amazing and said, it's like witchcraft. Like, how are you doing this? It's magic.
Yeah.
And let me see it again. Show the screen.
I'm doing a thingy, but
That is literally so cute. That's adorable.
I'm making it for a friend who has axolotls, so I think she'll like it. Say again?
How?
Probably.
Look, y'all, there's a hawk.
Oh, wow. It's probably taken me about an hour and a half of like just working on it. But I've been working on it for the past few days, just on and off.
No, it's really impressive. It's cool. You need to send me a picture when it's done.
I will. But that's why I asked. I was like, I was kind of focusing for a second, so gotcha.
Oh, it's okay. I zone out all the time. Let me see what the live chat was talking about because I missed.
Yes.
I missed stuff. That's your sister chat, right?
Yes.
Okay. ST game or Saint game, Street games, something. Ethan, Little Bacterium, and flogging. Thank you, M. That's the other word for it. Scourging.
Yeah.
Flogging, whipping. Annie left. Little Bacterium said, "Oh, that doll is cute."
Thank you.
Someone said, blah blah blah. Where is it? Oh yeah, Little Bacterium said they've had a rough year. Yeah, I feel that. Last year was rough. If I had to rank the worst years of my life, it would be 2022 is absolutely the worst year, and then probably 2020, 2023, and then 2021. It's terrible. The past 4 years have been awful. Yeah. Anyway, 2023 had some highlights, but most of it was just bad. But yeah, I feel that. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Sophia? Not really. To like your year being terrible, but just in general.
Not really sure what else to add. You've covered a lot of bases. Is there anything else? Is there any other thing we wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I was thinking, like I texted you about, sometime like when we do a Bible study live stream again, we can do like a worship segment of it. The only thing is like it would only be the two of our voices singing, so which won't bother me, but like if our audio cuts out, that's the only problem. Yeah, but that's always possible if we're gonna sing like a hymn or two, or like even a contemporary song. It's just contemporary song. We're probably gonna have to have music in the background versus a hymn. We can just sing it.
Exactly.
But yeah, we'll have to. If y'all be interested in doing that and just singing while you're watching the live stream, I'm open to doing that next time. Yeah, Little Bacterium. I totally feel that. Like I said, 2022 was awful. and then 2020 was terrible, and then 23, and then 21. Just, gosh. Yeah. You do grow from your experiences, but you go through a lot of pain to get there. Yeah. But Little Bacterium, if you ever want someone to talk to, my email is shenaniganscalker@gmail.com, and I have an Instagram under the same name. So you can always hit me up. Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, if no one has anything else to add, I'll go ahead and end the stream. And Sophia, I can still call you after we end the stream if you want.
All right. That sounds good.
Okie dokie, guys. Thank you so much for dropping by. Happy Easter. I kept the stream kind of short so that y'all can go spend time with your family, and I can go to the dam and watch the sunset or something. So, yeah. Happy Easter. Hope you guys have a great evening. And thank you,
Happy
Sophia,
Easter,
for
guys.
joining.
Absolutely. All right.
Bye.
Bye.